Hey, what is going on, guys? Today I am sharing with you a more detailed review tutorial and control guide for the VRC Formula Alpha 2023. If you don't know about this car, it is one of the most technologically advanced car mods in Assetto Corsa, the most advanced car mod in Assetto Corsa, and I'm going to be sharing with you all of the essential and also non-essential keybinds and different things you can tweak about this car so you can have a very good understanding of pretty much this kind of, I would almost say, brand new era of really good Assetto Corsa paid mods. From manual ignition and startup to different display screens and ERS strats and a ton of different stuff, there is a lot to talk about, and VRC have done a fantastic job. So without further ado, let's just get right into the tutorial. Okay, so the first thing that we're actually going to start off with is the download of the car itself. I'm sure most of you guys have already done this. I hope you did it manually, but there's a few things we're going to look through here. The first one is the manual PDF. It'll like unzip it here and you'll see it will open. You don't need this though because I'm going to show you how to do everything in here. So don't fret about that. Besides that, the only thing I recommend you install besides the AC files, which we can do right now, we might as well, just click into the AC files. You got apps and content. Just drag them over to your root Assetto Corsa folder. You'll see that it'll come in, of course. Again, if you're installing it for the first time, then you won't have that replaced. But if you install it through Content Manager, I recommend installing it manually again just to be safe. The other optional thing you can do is the setups right here. I recommend that you use them. For that, you're going to head to your Documents, Assetto Corsa, and then go into Setups, and then take these two VRC Formula folders, drag and drop them into this Setup folder right here. Again, I already have them, so it'll say Replace, but for you, you know, it won't if you're installing this for the first time. Besides that, there's nothing else you really need. If you want to make skins for the car, there is some templates, and we got some nice looking wallpapers. We can look at one of them right now. Very nice. So once we get into the sim here, you'll see we have two cars, the Formula Alpha 2023 and the Formula Alpha 2023 CSP. You are going to want to use the CSP version. Off the cuff, on the record though, I don't know why VRC includes non-CSP cars. This is a neutered version of the Formula Alpha 2023. You're not going to want to use it, so just use the CSP version. Hell, you can delete the original version if you want. That's what I did with the Formula Lithium, for instance, and it's what I'll do after this video. But you want to use the CSP version. Before we get into game though, there's something we're going to want to do. You're going to head over to Settings right here, go into Controls in your Assetto Corsa settings. You'll see all of your axes right here. First of all, your clutch, you're going to want to make sure you bind that to something. I hope you all have some kind of clutch paddle. On my wheel, for instance, I have the Fanatec McLaren GT3 wheel. I have a paddle I can use for a clutch. If you got a pedal, you can use a pedal, of course. It's not going to be very realistic for an F1 car because they use hand clutches, but it'll get you driving, and you will need a clutch. I think you can have auto clutch for this car. I haven't tried it, though, because, again, I have a clutch. But you're going to need some kind of clutch at some point, auto or manual, and, of course, manual is going to be the best. So bind a clutch if you can and you haven't already. You're going to head to Patch right here, and for extra option A, this is going to be your ignition. Now, for me, I just set it to Alt-1. All of these are pretty much Alts right here. I don't have a numpad on my keyboard, so I can't technically actually use these. But you can set it to a button on your wheel if you have enough buttons for that, which if you have like one of the more expensive Fanatec or Moza open wheel rims, I'm sure you do. That way you can have some super duper good immersion, but make sure you have an ignition set up. Another thing we can do for required button mappings is head over to buttons right here, and for KERS activation, make sure you have that set up. I'm sure you do if you've been driving like the Formula Hybrid or anything like that, but just in case you don't, again, you will need the KERS activation to start the car. As for optional things that are cool to do, we can head back over to Patch, and if you want to change the wheel display in-game to have different information, that will be Options E and Options F. So for me, let's do Alt-2. That just brought up, I hit Windows, that's why. Alt-2 and Alt-3. So I assume Alt-2 will have page up, and Alt-3 will have page down. Again, if you have enough buttons on a wheel rim, then you can also bind that as well, and you can have a page selector, which is super cool for the wheel. Besides that, before we get into the game, that is everything that we need to do. We can pick a cool livery. I don't know. I'm quite partial to this red and blue one right here. So we can get into the game. By the way, this is the new Pyre Zandvoort. Very, very cool extension. Once we load into game, a lot of this car, a lot of its cool features is in the setup. So the first thing we have is gears, and we have tires, of course. This is just your gear ratios. They're pretty fixed. Your tires, we have our C5 soft compound all the way up to our C1 hards, or actually C0, I guess is what they call it. And then we also have intermediates, and we have wets, which is super duper cool. We will put it on some C4s right now, just to have that slightly soft tire compound. Fuel is as normal. Electronic deployment strat 3. This is, I think, pretty much just however much more you want. So like strat 8 would be maximum attack, and then strat 1 would be conserve. That's just what maybe I pick up on. Could be the other way around, although I feel like it would be the higher number would be more deployment. And then engine braking as well. This is going to be, as it says right here, this setting sets the ECU within the ICU to retain a small percentage of the fuel flow to blow into the diffuser, reducing engine braking from the ICU on cost. And you can read all that if you want to. Basically, this will mean that the car will kind of slow down and brake on its own, even when you're not applying brakes, just as it goes through the rev range. For me personally, again, this isn't like a setup video necessarily. I'm just going over all the features and controls of this car, but super cool to see there. The Areo kits. This is the customizable Areo right here, so we can look. Sadly, there is some like blur, but you can see the wing there for high downforce changes to kind of like a Mercedes, really sharp, pointy edged rear wing. We got the medium right there, and then we got the Monza spec low downforce. And we also do have some nose types as well. Let's see here. Can I like maybe, okay, it's just on orbit cam for some reason, but there are different nose types as well. I did show that off in my original video, and the front wing levels as well. The little flaps in the front wing will move up and down depending on what angle you have them set. The gurney wing here is just a small little black lip on the rear wing. To be honest, I don't know 100% what it does. You can kind of see it changing there maybe a little bit. It's right at the top. Yeah, see, there you go, it disappeared. You're looking at thin little black pixels there. And finally, the dummy T-cam position. You can change what side you want it to be on. Super cool Areo customization with this car. The brake bias, again, this is stuff we're going to bind later on. The deployment strats, we have so much for this. So we have our strat 1 priority is recovery, strat 2 is delivery, and then actually that is interesting. So a lot of these values, I'm actually also semi-learning this while I'm going here. So it seems like actually the medium strat numbers are actually going to give you the most deployment. That is very interesting. I wonder what the difference is, because, you know, strat 1 is 0 deployment, and then you kind of go up super extreme for strat 2, and then it slowly trickles down. That's actually very, very interesting. So strat 1 is no deployment whatsoever. You're just on ICE power, but strat 2 is the maximum attack, and then strat 8 is the lowest possible amount you can do while still having some form of electric assistance. Deployment tuning, this is another thing. Just a lot of stuff. This is something that if you're really into setups, you're going to delve into a lot, but we don't have to do that here today. It's definitely nothing critical. Same with the differential. Generic, I would just leave all the FFB stuff at default. Pit stop strategy, we all know that. Suspension tuning looks pretty normal. Same with alignment and dampers. Bump stops as well. It's something actually I think new for these Formula setups right here. I don't think the RSS car has this, but looks relatively similar. Heave springs looks okay, and the torque map right here, you can have a lot of torque or some low torque or wet torque. So we can put it just on balance for now. And then pedal mapping here, this is basically going to be linear is what it's set on by default. It's probably what you'd want to keep it on. There's wet as well, so that might be if you're driving in the rain, you might want that. Progressive is just kind of, I believe it would be exponential. I don't know exactly what all of these would necessarily mean. I'm sure VRC breaks it down pretty well, but I would just recommend probably keeping it on linear unless you're going to go on wets, so you might want to put it on wet. Halo, this can make the halo transparent in front of you. Personally, though, I just keep it down. It doesn't really bother me. The wheel is something super duper cool. Let's see here if I can get this. So we have 3 or 4 different steering wheel options, I believe. So we have the Aston Martin kind of steering wheel by default, the Renault Alpine steering wheel, the Ferrari steering wheel, and the Williams steering wheel. Super duper cool. I used the Aston Martin one a lot in my videos. I think we'll go with the Williams one for this. You can also change the RPMs, so you can have their shift patterns. So sec block, or block. I don't actually know 100% what they mean. I assume sec is sequential and then block is block. I don't necessarily know. And you can also change RPM targets as well. Again, this is for super duper nerdy setup people to get into. I would just leave it at sec block for now. It works perfectly fine for me. And the display style, this is where you can change it in the setup. However, we are going to bind that feature right now when we get in the car. So first, we got to start it up. So we can hit Alt-1 for me, or if you have your startup button bound, then you'll press that. Make sure you're in neutral. It won't work if you're in any kind of gear. Neutral though, and then hit your cruise button, and you'll hear that the car comes to life. To get rolling, you're going to pull the clutch in, of course. It's like a manual car. You just got it as a hand clutch, and you're going to slowly add power and let the clutch out, and there we go. We are now moving. Then if you want to stop the proper way, as you slow down, you slowly pull the clutch in and then brake right there. There you go. And then when you dump the clutch, anti-stall is going to come on and the engine will shut off. Let's take the time now to go into the Essential Controls. This is the app that comes with the car. So if it's not in this scroll bar by default, it should be in your settings tab right here. But if you want to make it easier, you can just look up extended right here and you will see it pop up in the search bar. Once you have this come up right here, okay, this is kind of annoying me at the top here. There we go. Start the car. Hopefully it'll let me live now with the engine stalled thing. Come on, there we go. So now we can set all of these. So the brake bias, fine. For modifier, I don't really know what that necessarily does. But for the brake bias, fine. Down, you can just bind that. For me, I have these little toggle switches on my wheel. I recommend having some kind of switch that goes up and down. So down would do that, and then up would do this. Sadly, I do have that set to my MGUK. So that'll be a little annoying if I'm trying to change my brake bias. Brake magic, you could have it as a toggle or a press. So you don't know what brake magic is, it's a way to heat up the front brakes, say if you're on like a formation lap. Lewis had it, of course, infamously in Azerbaijan. Sets the brake bias, I believe, to around 70-75% to the front. So basically you're going to lock up if you're actually trying to race and use those brakes. But if you're cruising around, it's an easy way to get some heat into it. I'm just going to leave it on press by default. If you want to bind this to something, I actually don't know what is not being used. So I'm going to just hit that button right there. It's one of my funky switch buttons. Brake migration, again, I don't necessarily know what sequential or multiple position switch would mean. I guess if you're using, well, I guess I do. If you have a multi-position switch like a TC or an ABS rotary and you want to use that for the brake migration, then you can. Then you would want to hit right here, the multi-position switch. But for brake migration down and up, we can set it to this right here. So we can do brake, oh, that's brake migration down. We want that, and then brake migration up right here. Oh, actually, I can't do that now that I think about it because I have that set to my my Strat. Let's see, what can we do here? I don't really have many buttons actually on this GT3 wheel. I don't know what's being used for what. I'm just going to do this for now. I don't think 4 or 1 are being used for anything. Diff entry, this is all stuff, pedal map as well. A lot of this stuff, I don't know if you'd necessarily be changing on the fly. And if you don't know what it means, then I guess you don't have to do it either to just drive the car and enjoy it. But it's super cool that we got all of these controls here in Assetto. These were not here before. VRC has added all of these into Assetto and its engine and everything like that, and it is super duper cool to see. Another thing that we can look at, I forgot, what did I bind my pages to? Oh yeah, it was Alt 2 and Alt 3. So we got race mode, map mode right here if you just need to map the track, setup mode, quali mode, warm-up mode, and then we go back to race mode. Super duper cool. So I guess for this we can have warm-up mode. I think that'll probably, let's see right here, kind of dump the clutch with this car. I think that'll have our tire temps right there in the center, our strat, so we can have strat 3, strat 2, strat 1. Again, this is no deployment, so if you're doing a out lap, a warm-up lap, you'd obviously be on strat 1. And then let's say we want to start pushing now, so we can go to, what is it? We can go to quali mode right here, put it to strat 2, and there we have our sector splits right there. Of course, we have our big gear, RPM lights, and RPM number as well. We got our brake bias right there. We got our sector split times. We got our ERS percentage on the side right there, 90%, as well as how much we have left for the lap in the green bar, I believe. Super duper cool stuff. And then we have race mode, of course. I'll get the engine refired here so we can see it without that. Race mode, got your tire temps. Looks very similar actually to quality mode, except it doesn't have the split times. I think personally for me, I would probably honestly use quali mode the most just because it has the most information on it. But even I think bog standard, it comes in race mode. This still works perfectly fine as well. But super duper cool stuff in this car. So much technology. And I hope that this video helped you figure it out and get it all set up. Again, I'm not a setup person, so I don't know fully what every single little thing does. But for the general person, I hope this video helped you out if you were struggling to set up the VRC Formula Alpha. But thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, a like and a sub would mean a lot. Let's dump the clutch here and do a nice little donut in the end. Thank you for watching. For the Dutch fans, there we go. Give them some smoke. And I will see you all in the next one. Have a good one, guys.